Okay, so for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Maciej Lisicki, and I happen to be an undergraduate student of Konrad, and then I became involved in many activities that Konrad started doing. And today I'll tell you, although myself I'm a fluid dynamicist too, I'll tell you about everything but the science behind the, well, hard science behind what Konrad did. So all the sorts of brilliant initiatives he took up apart from his main course of research. And so to give you first a bit of a flavor of who I am, so I attended the same high school as Konrad, as well, we found out later. And then I did my master's at the Faculty of Physics, University of Warsaw, where Konrad was my tutor in 2 fluid dynamics courses I did, and these were probably the best courses I had there. And then I did a PhD with Bogdan Cichocki doing statistical physics at the Faculty of Physics in Warsaw. And right after that, a week after defending my PhD, I came to Cambridge, first as a Crichton Fellow and then as a postdoc with Eric Lauger, working on various problems with low Reynolds number flows. And this is a photo in front of the old Cavendish when I was visiting Konrad for a week in 2013, but I'll tell you that story later. So my talk will be mostly about outreach activities that Konrad was involved with, and there are surely many more than these that I'm going to show you. So if you know of some others, or if you have any comments, just feel free to interrupt me. And this is sort of an unorganized bunch of things. So let me start with the first. Well, it's not the first thing he did, but it's one of the main things he did. So there is the Polish Radio Science Fair. So in Warsaw, it's organized yearly in the park. It's an outdoor one day of excitement, of hands-on research with 250 institutions and almost 200,000 visitors each year. Now, this year it's the 21st edition. And it's really a very inclusive event where there is lots of fun for kids, there is lots of fun for adults. And Konrad was involved very heavily in the science fair. He was in the program committee in 2011 and 2012. And I remember organizing for one of the editions, we organized a stand for the University of Warsaw for the Faculty of Physics, and we were demonstrating the dynamics of non-Newtonian liquids using cornstarch. You know that if you fill up a swimming pool with cornstarch and water, you can walk on it and still not drown, provided that you're fast enough. And so this was the type of things we all became involved in, so that Konrad organized, he had this ability to organize a group of people around himself. And this group of people was willing to do whatever he thought was worth doing. And so we got involved in this science fair. But his love and his passion for outreach and bringing science to the general public extended far beyond that. So this is the Copernicus Science Center in Warsaw, well, not as new now, a science museum. It was established, so the idea was launched in 2005 and then it opened in 2010 and has a million visitors each year, which makes it probably the most popular museum in Poland. And it's an enormous building full of laboratories with various exhibitions, a planetarium, a cinema, a conference center. They organize debates, seminars, lectures, and there's, well, from little kids to adult kids, everyone can find something interesting there, and there is particularly a very nice exhibition of fluid dynamics related experiments. And Konrad was on the first program committee, and this program committee sort of set up a way for the Copernicus Science Center to operate. And thanks to that, well, myself and Kamil Kwiatkowski, who's also somewhere here, we were involved a bit in evaluation of these exhibitions, and so Konrad tried to organize a group of people to improve the Copernicus Science Center. But I think Marysia Ekiel-Józefska was also involved in evaluating these exhibitions. And so we knew that how important it was to Konrad that this science center is successful, and it is very successful indeed. And Ula is now working in the Copernicus Science Center, and she told me just last night at dinner that it's so immensely popular that they're completely fully booked for a long time for a long time. So this was another successful initiative. Of course, it's a huge group of people working on that, but Konrad, it was very important to Konrad, and I think it is important to remember that. But he was also, well, the Copernicus Science Center also started co-organizing the science fair. Another initiative of theirs is FameLab, which was also something very characteristic of Konrad, that with his wit, he was very good at explaining complicated scientific notions in a witty and a very clear way. And he became a juror for a science outreach competition. It's according to FameLab website, it's a science communication competition designed to engage and entertain. So these are very short talks. Each participant has 3 minutes and only a very limited number of props to popularize, to bring the research to the general public in an interesting way. And so for the first Polish edition, which was, I think, in 2011, Konrad was one of 4 members of the jury. And I remember watching the finals. It was very much Konrad style. And this competition is becoming increasingly popular in Poland, and it's got its international edition in the UK. And then comes another, well, sort of a Polish-British thing, the Science Polish Perspectives Conference, which is a yearly meeting that oscillates between Oxford and Cambridge. And the first meeting was in November 2013 in Cambridge. This year, it was also in Cambridge in 2017. And Konrad was one of the guest speakers for the first edition. And well, I remember when he came back to Warsaw after this meeting in Cambridge, he was very excited about this conference, because the idea of this meeting was to bring together Polish scientists working abroad or outside of Poland, but mostly in the UK. And he was very excited about all the brilliant people he met there. And I have to say that this year I had the pleasure of speaking there in Cambridge, and I'm just as excited. It's a brilliant meeting, and it's fantastic that this tradition continues. And on another note, but this is the International Young Physicists Tournament. It's probably something you've never heard about. It's a competition for high school students, for teams of 5 high school students. And probably most of us heard about the Physics Olympiad, or all sorts of physics competitions where people solve problems. They get an answer which is 4 or 5 or 3, and then the problem is solved. This one is a bit more like scientific research related competition. So it's organized in such a way that every year the international committee selects 17 problems. I'll show you how these problems look like. And then teams of students from many countries, typically 30 countries for the international level of these competitions, come together, and well, it's called a tournament because there are physics fights. So one team presents their solution to a particular problem, then another team is bound to discuss the solution in a critical way, and then there is a third team that has to review the performance of both teams, and then it's followed by jury questions. And particularly, we had a team formed every year at Starship High School, and we happened to win gold medals in all these years in international competitions. And to give you a flavor of what this is about, there's IYPT 2004, so I was involved in this one particularly. So this is the photo of the team. We went to Australia for the international competition, to Brisbane, and we were lucky to win this tournament. And the final problem we were discussing was this tube there. It's a didgeridoo. So it's a hollow tube with a beeswax mouthpiece, and you can produce all sorts of sound with that. The question was to analyze that sound. So it's a very open question typically. So one of the questions there was also problem 7, the problem I was actually working on. Coin. Stand a coin on its edge upon a horizontal surface. Gently spin the coin and investigate the resulting motion as it settles. And that brings in many of you the connection to the Euler disk, and then a paper by Keith. So something that Keith was working on back in 2000. And so I recall that my first contact with Keith was actually an email I sent him in 2004, and he very kindly replied. It was a long reply, and I tried hard to dig it up. I couldn't. But I remember that, well, that I was very encouraged by this answer. So the degree of knottedness now increases. You see, there are links for me. And so IYPT 2018. I just looked it up yesterday. Well, what do you think of that? Cusps in a cylinder. A horizontal cylinder is partially filled with viscous liquid. When the cylinder is rotated around its axis, unusual fluid behavior can be observed, such as cusp-like shape on the walls of the cylinder. Investigate the phenomenon.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like fun. And I'd like to remind you that this is a problem for high school students. So they come up with all sorts of different approaches, combining experiments and theory. And although these are very early attempts, the questions are very scientific in nature, which is really nice. And so the role of Konrad in that was when I stopped being a team member and finished my high school, and I met Konrad. People in Staszi's high school were still working on these problems, so every year there was a new team. And I was sort of coming around and trying to consult their solutions. And then, well, with fluid dynamics problems, I would often go to Konrad and ask him questions. And so one of the problems we were working on together, so he was advising us. He was helping us choose relevant literature, discuss our solutions. He saw many of our presentations and had critical remarks. One of them is from 2009. So the school team went to China then, and they won a bronze medal. Stop a drip. To prevent dripping from a bottle after pouring, it can be turned slightly, which you all know from drinking lots of wine. And investigate the motion of the bottle for no drop to fall. So this had lots to do with the so-called teapot effect. So the fact that if you're pouring tea at some point, you'll inevitably just wet the table because the stream adheres to the outer surface of the teapot. And Konrad was of great help then, discussing with us, well, there is an exact solution of a fluid turning around a semi-infinite plate. So an inviscid fluid. And well, Konrad pointed us to the right direction with this problem, and he spent hours discussing with our team, so with these high school students, how to properly approach the problem without really too much of mathematical tools. And so he also did more public outreach. And one of the examples is Life on a Warmer Planet. And so this program was emitted in 2014 in Polish television, and with a DVD issued with many of us have copies at home now. And Konrad was the TV expert on issues related to climate change, and particularly those occurring within a lifetime and their consequences for the life of people. And well, this brings us to another bit of Konrad's interest in science related to environmental sciences, and particularly fluid dynamics of the environment. And so he used to teach courses about that also. However, he was probably at the University of Warsaw, he was best known for his courses on, well, hardcore fluid dynamics. And these are his handwritten notes he would use every year for the courses. I remember when I attended the course for the first time in, must have been 2008. He was using these notes. They were fairly yellow. And then I helped him a bit run the course in 2013, and these were the same notes. There were the classical set of notes he was using, and this is an example of his handwriting. So he used to teach 2 fluid dynamics courses. Each of them was 1 semester, so 15 weeks. One of them was Podstawy hydrodynamiki, fundamentals of hydrodynamics, and the other one was selected topics in hydrodynamics. And it was interesting because the exam had a very particular structure. So there were usually 5 exam problems. There was a written exam and an oral exam. The written part had 5 problems and 5 hours to solve them. And the oral part the next day, which would happen usually the next day, you would be required to complete your solutions, so to discuss the solutions that you've correctly written down, and then to solve the problems that you haven't solved the preceding day. So each time after the exam, we would go home or actually go together to a pub and discuss how to solve all these questions. So that was actually fairly successful, because after the exam, we all had complete solutions to all the problems. And so all these activities together would involved a large group of people, which Konrad referred to as KFC, Konrad's fan club. And I had the luck to be the honorary president, as he called it, of this club, probably due to, yes, large amounts of coffee drank together, because I used to come round to his office, the top floor of the Institute of Geophysics, every now and then for a cup of coffee. And there were, well, many also surprising encounters around Europe. So this particular one is dinner at my, well, very much a student accommodation in Jülich in Western Germany, where Konrad and Gosia were coming back from Cambridge. Was it 2011? No, 2013. After his visiting fellowship in Trinity. So they were driving back to Germany to Poland, and I had them to dinner. And, well, but that's a bit of me hosting them. But Konrad was also the perfect host. And here's me enjoying Konrad's visiting fellow commoner rights in Trinity Fellows Parlour in February 2013. I stayed at his house in Bridge Street for a week. And it was a fantastic week. And, well, I tried to replicate all the magnificence of Trinity High Table at my place in January 2014, and this may be the only photo you'll see today of Konrad without a moustache. And of course there is a photo of this food. I didn't include it, but I have the photo of the food, taken by Konrad obviously. And it's probably the right time to revisit my short story, and to point out that the degree of knotedness is only increasing. It's only ever increasing. It's not conserved in this case. And so at various points of my life, I became increasingly, well, more knotted to and tied to Konrad. And also the idea of me coming to Cambridge to do a postdoc, well, was in my mind before, but the name of Eric Lauger was actually suggested by Konrad. And, well, many of the benefits of being in Cambridge would not have been possible without Konrad's constant support. And the degree of knotedness is ever increasing even now, because we are all meeting here basically because we want to commemorate Konrad. And just for the final remarks, Konrad was always very happy to help, and he provided support in a range of initiatives. Because he valued people he liked, and he always put a lot of effort into helping them. And this resulted in a range of initiatives that were far beyond academic research. And thanks to this, to the fact that he attracted a group of people who surrounded him and who were keen on supporting the initiatives he would propose, I think, well, thanks to his fantastic personality, we were able to do all these very nice and profitable things. And I'd like to thank you for your attention with this photo of Konrad. I find very amusing and also characteristic, because I've been with him to Grantchester also a couple of times, even though it was February. And when I came to Cambridge first, I also found myself visiting Grantchester very often, almost every weekend. And that brings very good memories to me. So thank you for your attention.